After decades of domination, great American legacy brands like Bud Light, Ben & Jerry's and Target have taken a financial and reputational hit because they decided to hop on the woke bandwagon. Sky News All-Stars Rita Panahi, Megyn Kelly and Caleb Bond chronicle the meteoric fall of these brands and ask if they will ever recover and win back their loyal customer base. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are some of the biggest buzzwords in corporate America. In fact, DEI management is the second fastest growing job on LinkedIn at the moment, and big businesses are feeling the pressure to improve their reputation as an employer of choice in an increasingly competitive marketplace. But do these companies actually care about the well-being of their employees, or is this a very expensive display of virtue signaling?
What you find with companies like this is they actually don't care about these different kind of cultural issues. They just want to look good and kind of have the social media claps. But yeah, it's ridiculous.
And these multinational corporations, they don't care about us, whether it's Bud Light or whether it's, a Target. They really don't care. They just all care about their ESG, their social credit score within businesses. So I think that these companies, all they care about is appeasing to other companies. Maybe they'll start appeasing to their customers and changing a lot of this weird indoctrination that they're just subliminally putting everywhere. But also, you can't ignore it, really.
The list of once great brands falling victim to woke virtue signaling is growing longer by the day. Sky News All-Stars reflect on the victims of woke ideology. The most high-profile fall from grace has been Bud Light, where transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney destroyed the market share of the iconic beer brand.
Bud Light, we know the troubles that they're in, but they have now officially lost their title as the America's favourite beer.
Morning after 2 decades, a new top-selling beer in the U.S. Mexican lager Modelo Especial was the top-selling beer last month, overthrowing Bud Light. There are a couple things at play here, including flat-out changing taste, but also the backlash from a social media post by transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney.
This is really good. I'm a firm believer that you, the individual, have some autonomy in this game. And when people say, okay, that company, they've gone woke, they're promoting trans ideology or whatever it might be. In this case, it was because of this influencer, Dylan Mulvaney, who supposedly is trans or whatever it might be. It's like, okay, you don't like your own audience. You don't like the frat guys who drink Bud Light. We're just not going to drink it anymore. And Bud Light, they really destroyed the brand. And I'm telling you, man, this one's going to stick. It's embarrassing to go and, get Bud Light at a bar or at a party or wherever anymore.
This follows the latest update on Bud Light, with Anheuser-Busch, reportedly the parent company, losing $27 billion in market value thanks to its attempt to force transgender ideology onto America's beer-drinking men and women.
And even the ad agency behind the Dylan Mulvaney stunt is facing a questionable future, according to Sky News All-Star Megyn Kelly.
The disaster that is the performance artist of Dylan Mulvaney, we now learn that there's more problems, not just for Bud Light, who people are not buying, they're not going back to it, they have found the alternatives when it comes to their beer of choice, but the ad agency responsible for, further empowering the performance artist is in even more trouble now.
The reports are that they are in an all-out panic, and why wouldn't they be? They've made a legendary mistake. They now have made this brand, rather than more sellable, they have made it a laughingstock. To be caught with a can of Bud Light in America now is like being caught with your pants down. You look like a fool. Everyone will laugh at you. You're not in on the joke. You've made yourself a national humiliation just by selecting the wrong beer can. And for those who have been living under a rock and haven't yet been told what's happened to that brand and what it now means, they're about to find out the hard way. They're going to be the butt of a lot of jokes just by ordering a beer that used to be symbolic of middle America. So far, we've had at least 2 people essentially fired, laid off, but they were never seen again. We've had this advertising company completely embarrassed and in a panic now. Who's going to hire them to run their marketing campaign? We've had one of these classic American brands absolutely devastated, and their devastation has been like a nuclear bomb. The plutonium has rubbed off. It's still in the ether, coming down on companies like Target, like Chick-fil-A, like Kohl's, another clothing company. So the shrapnel is hitting others now because the American public has been stimulated, awoken, and remains very angry about this kind of thing.
Department store Target also experienced financial and reputational damage when they featured a tuck-friendly range of apparel for children during Pride Month. Sky News All-Star James Morrow explains.
Well, as we always say on this show, go woke, go broke. And isn't that the case? Just check out what's happening to Target in the U.S. It has lost $9 billion with a B dollars in market value since causing controversy over its rollout of a Pride collection featuring LGBTQ-friendly clothing for children. Now, to discuss this and lots more, filmmaker and my favorite New Yorker, Ami Horowitz, joins me now. Ami, thanks so much for coming on the U.S. Report, and I'm fascinated by this whole case of Target following on Bud Light. It seems like public protest is really working here with the calls to boycott Target. Are they starting to panic?
Yeah, look, I've always been of the view that we should not use economic boycotts. We have political disagreements. That has always been my view for many, many years. I've changed that view. The other side has weaponized economics. They've weaponized boycotts to push their particular agenda and has been extraordinarily effective. For that reason, I changed my mind a couple of years ago. I think we have to wield the same weapon. I think it's damaging to all of us in the U.S. and the world to do such a thing, but I don't see it as any kind of choice. Yes, it has worked. It's worked quite effectively, actually. It's worked with Bud Light. It's now worked with Target, or as we say, Target. They moved this to the back of many of their stores. It's awful that we've come to this position, but this is where we are, and we have to fight fire with fire. And it pains me to say that, but yes, economic boycotts are very, very effective.
So this is a really interesting thing to me then. Does it seem that on the, I guess, conservative, or maybe just I should say normal side of politics and in the customer base just out in general, people have all woken up to this kind of at the same time and is saying enough is enough?
And US ice cream giant Ben & Jerry's hypocrisy was exposed after they demanded reparations through a 4th of July tweet, but didn't offer their headquarters land to the traditional owners themselves.
And now perhaps Ben & Jerry's is going to pay a price too. The mediocre ice cream brand is no stranger to activism. And this week they marked Independence Day with this Twitter post saying, "It's high time we recognise that the US exists on stolen Indigenous land and commit to returning it." Well, it seems that bit of anti-American sentiment might cost Ben & Jerry's. Not only are there calls for a boycott as the parent company's share price falls, but they are now being asked to live up to what they're preaching about the US existing on stolen land that must be returned. An Indigenous tribe descended from the Native American nation that originally controlled the land in Vermont that Ben & Jerry's headquarters is located on, well, they want their land back. The chief of the Nulhegan Band of Cusack Albenaki Nation told Newsweek they wanted to reclaim stewardship of their lands, but Ben & Jerry's had failed to approach them. Imagine my shock here.
The beloved Disney company also refuses to acknowledge the financial damage being woke is doing to their brand, reveals Sky News All-Star Rita Panahi.
And speaking of lefty lunacy, Disney is in the headlines this week after losing a whopping 2.4 million subscribers. I wonder if the company's relentlessly woke activism has anything to do with, their image suffering. Surely the painfully woke content, including incoherent race-baiting cartoons, well, that doesn't have anything to do with their current troubles, does it? I mean, who wouldn't love to watch The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, which features the diabolically dumb and dangerous book White Fragility from race hustler Robin DiAngelo. I mean, what could be better than sitting down in front of the TV with the kids to watch this catastrophe?
The descendants of slaves continue to build this. Slaves built this country. And we, the descendants of slaves in America, have earned reparations for their suffering. And continue to earn reparations every moment we spend submerged in the systemic prejudice, racism, and white supremacy that America was founded with and still has not atoned for. Slaves built this country. And only we can free ourselves. Emancipation is not freedom. Jim Crow, segregation, redlining, public schools, feeding private prisons, where we become slaves again. As we celebrate Juneteenth for the umpteenth time, our account is still outstanding. Cause this country was built on slavery, which means slaves built this country. And we demand our 40 acres and a mule.
Gosh, can't wait to get home and watch the rest of that right after I stick a couple of thumbtacks right in my eyes.
And Starbucks went all out, dedicating an entire TV commercial to transgender issues, but faced backlash from customers, which forced them to tone down their woke agenda. They can't win though, with staff striking over the removal of Pride merchandise from the stores. Starbucks has shown that politics and coffee just don't mix, whichever way you look at it.
Around 3,500 Starbucks workers from over 150 stores will go on strike this week in the US. The union representing Starbucks employees say stores are not allowing employees to decorate their workplaces for Pride Month. The company has denied the claims, labelling them as false information. It comes as many businesses face growing criticism for their support of Pride Month.
Starbucks India's decided they're going to advertise about transgenderism. They've put out an ad depicting a transgender girl who is going to catch up with her parents for the first time in a long time in a Starbucks store. Take a look.
Thank you, Papa, for meeting me. I know बड़े साल बीत गए, लेकिन आप आज भी मेरे लिए सब कुछ हो.
Coffee.
Oh, it starts with your name.
Now, apart from that jingle, which is just a crime, an oral crime, what a tenuous link to go, okay, we're now going to try and get this social engineering agenda into a coffee shop. Please.
But there is hope on the horizon. The consumer pushback has seemed to work, with many of the brands toning down their overt woke agendas, according to Rita Panahi.
If you go woke, you may very well go broke. You've got, here we go, you've got Disney's chief diversity officer resigning. Disney's first ever film featuring a non-binary character, Elemental, had the company's lowest opening weekend revenue in its history. Target stock is down around $15 billion. Starbucks is toning down its Pride display. We know that trouble Bud Light have got themselves into. Do you think lefty CEOs and marketing departments are feeling pressure now from the half of the population that doesn't share their worldview?
Yeah, I think what you saw, Rita, was a building frustration with these corporations that feel it's their place to preach at their customers instead of just serving them with the products and the services that they're supposed to be doing. And the Budweiser, Bill and Mulvaney controversy really blew open that dam. And now company after company is feeling the force of a consumer base that's just sick of it. They're tired of being preached at. They're tired of being scolded by people who take their money and supposedly serve their interests. And so I think right now, any C-suite in America that is not focused on just serving consumers is cruising for a bruising.
And we've seen Disney stock price collapsing to 2014 levels. They're down dramatically in recent years, but they keep digging their heels in on this woke push. They really seem to be committed to this. It seems to be a ideological imperative as opposed to a commercial one. What's going to correct this? Because if they're willing to self-harm, if they're willing to see their share price plummet, if they're willing to put out movies that nobody wants to watch, how can consumers have any power if those in charge are ignoring the backlash?
Well, this touches on another fight that our organization, Consumers Research, has been working on for the last 24 months. You have in America, and probably in Australia as well, a huge number of publicly traded companies whose majority of their shares are held by large asset managers like BlackRock, who push these companies, whose CEO has bragged about pushing these companies into a woke direction. And to some extent, they feel that they are insulated from the wrath of their consumers, even as they lose hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 8 or 9 films that have been box office bombs. They feel they're insulated because you have people like Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, with their back. But just yesterday, that seems to be changing. Larry Fink himself said that he was ashamed to become the face of the ESG movement. They may be, reconfiguring the way they're going to act at BlackRock. So the days of these corporations being shielded by woke Wall Street may be coming to an end.